Despite lacking any discernible offense, the French national team has made it to the next round of the Euros, the great big soccer European football competition. And so because of that, I'm going to be talking about yet another French rap album, which makes me very happy. Now, I didn't know what I was going to review, so I kind of put it out there on Instagram. And someone happened to mention that I should cover the album Mauvais Oeil by Lunatic. Now, that certain person who suggested that is someone who I feel pretty close with, even though I've never met them. The name is Nicholas Craven. He's a producer out of Montreal. I think he is probably one of the 5 best producers in the world right now, probably even top 3. I mean, I really like his production. And part of the reason why is that we both speak the same kind of secret language. That's the secret language of people who lived through 2 golden ages at the same time. In the 1990s, late 1990s, early 2000s, there was the golden age of American rap and the golden age of French rap. And because he was from French Canada, they had all this great access to that music, and that was as popular there as it was in France. So it was this whole moment. I studied French and I lived in France for a while. And so, we both got to experience that. And I hear that in his production. And he commented, he said that I should cover Mauvais Oeil for the culture. So what am I going to do? Ignore, one of my artistic heroes? Of course not. But there is a problem. I know this album. I know Lunatic. I bought the album in France the week it came out. I remember seeing the commercials, not the commercials, but, like posters on the street for this album 24 years ago. What's the problem, you say? I've never liked it. Now, you'll see I'm in a new setting. This is my new office. I've been a little bit downgraded. Things are pretty tough out here on the streets for a French professor. And I've been looking around trying to find my Lunatic CD. And I can't find it. But I can find so many other great French rap CDs that circle Lunatic. We're talking Zoxé, who was friends with Lunatic and helped them out in the early days. Talking Time Bomb, one of their first labels that they were signed to. We're talking La Clica, who did a whole bunch of work with them and also helped them figure out. Booba, one of the rappers from Lunatic, says that if it weren't for La Clica, he never would have learned how to rap. We're talking the Hostile compilations, which featured their first biggest song. We're even talking about the X-Men, the goddamn X-Men, okay? Who most of this album is produced by most of the same producer who produced most of the album I'm going to be talking about today by Lunatic. But somehow I don't have that CD. Now maybe that's symbolic of this fact that I've never quite connected with Lunatic. Now I'm going to teach you a little bit of French slang right now, because it's not really that I don't like it. It's that I don't kiffe it. Pourquoi je ne kiffe pas Lunatic? C'est ça la question, n'est-ce pas? Why do I not kiffer Lunatic? Now the reason that I use the word kiffer, it's a very important word in French slang. Like many words in French slang, it comes from a different language. No, not English, you goddamn chauvinists, you hegemonic monsters. It comes from Arabic. It comes from the word for pleasure in Arabic, which also is the same word for cannabis. Okay, so it's very much street slang. You can also say kif kif, which means no difference. But really, kiffe is to like it. And I've never really kiffed it. So I re-listened. It sounds terrible. I say that in English. I just kiffed. But I re-listened to the album since France's improbable goalless victory over Portugal, which is realistically a stronger side. Whatever, we'll take it. It rules. I now get why, for the past 24 years, people generally put it in the top 5 albums in the history of French rap. Sometimes I've seen it as high as number 1. I went on to Reddit, the French rap Reddit, and there's a whole thread right there, all in French, but all about what are the top 5 albums of all time. And Mauvais Oeil, which means evil eye, it's an expression which means sort of to curse someone with a bad look. It's particularly popular in Arabic cultures. That's probably the reason why they call it Mauvais Oeil. I'll get more into their history. It makes sense why this album is up there, why it's Illmatic or Reasonable Doubt. It's that kind of just landmark of French rap music that I did not kiffe. Now, I asked Nicholas Craven for a quote. He said it is a French Islamic version of murder music by Mobb Deep. Efficient, well said. Exactly, solid and true. Although it's also, I would say, even more than that. But it's worth emphasizing the importance of Mobb Deep. I'm starting to develop a theory that France was more influenced by Mobb Deep than America was. I mean, I talk all the time about my favorite French rap album of all time, one of my favorite, what I call the most important album in my life, because this is why I moved to France, this album by IM. They heard Mobb Deep, and they just said, well, we got to start over again. Like, whatever we were doing before, we have to start over. Really, they are like some of the most important elements in all of French rap, and you hear it so much in here, not just because it's a duo who's making grimy raps, but also you just hear it absolutely everywhere. Another thing worth mentioning, and again, I wish I had the damn album. I wish I could just hold it up. You know, like, when I tell you it's weird, like this is still just half of my other French rap CDs. I have things as obscure as Gremlins. I dare you, I double dog dare you to find another human being who has a Gremlins CD, okay? This is some real underground stuff. And that's what's wild. This album, which is considered top 5, Mauvais Oeil by Lunatic, is an independent album. They produced it on their own label. I mean, now, it didn't look as scuffed as this does. Look at that. Look at that. Or, you know, I've got like Pyroman and Nida. I got Funky Family. You know, I got Faflarage. That's one of my favorites. God damn, I love that album. And I got Ministère Amer. I've got all these other albums. Afro Jazz, another one of my absolute favorites. Yet somehow I can't find my Lunatic copy. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I'm having fun here in my office anyway. You can pretend I have it. It's a blue cover, just, you know, monochromatic blue and black, and it has these two faces, kind of dark and mysterious. So the 3 reasons I did not keep this album: political, artistic, and personal. And I'm going to go through and kind of poke holes at my own dislike, because that's what I want this to be. I want this to be a journey where I teach you about some French rap music, some excellent French rap music, while also sort of investigating what took me away from this, what has deprived me of this great piece of art for so long. So the political aspect is pretty clear. First of all, another thing. Not only are we celebrating France's victory in the Euros, but France defeated the far right. I thought that the far right, the fascist, the okay. You can have a debate about whether or not the National Front is fascist. It is debatable. I believe that they are. If you have contrary arguments to say they're not technically fascist, I will hear them. I will not agree with them. I've read them all, but let's not get too political on that. The French fascists almost rose to power. The far right anti-immigrant party almost rose to power, but the exact same way that the French continued in the Euros, the French populace avoided the National Front, the Rassemblement National, the National Rally, from taking power. Like, it's this bizarre thing. Like, they Didier Deschamps their way out of fascism. like not a very effective offense, but they collated together, the center and the left collated together to make sure that they didn't allow any goals. It's weird. It's a weird, like, stumbling across the finish line that both the soccer team has done and the political system has done. But in particular, when we're talking about Lunatic, you cannot escape it, because the breakout star, there's 2 people in Lunatic, Ali and Booba, and Booba is considered to be, by many, the greatest French rapper of all time. I do not consider him as such, but I understand why people do. Probably the most influential, probably the biggest French rapper of all time, and he is a severely complicated, severely flawed character, all right? Like, if you mix Drake and Kid Rock, that's the kind of, like, way that you can picture, like, the attitude people have towards Booba, who also happens to be so good, has one of the best rap voices in the WORLD, not in France, one of the best rap voices ever put to tape, to CD, to MP3. But he is such a great example of a shift that happened in French rap. So I talk about it. So I teach a class. Sorry, I'm trying to find another note over here. I teach a class on French hip-hop. And what's fascinating is American hip-hop, by the early 90s, had abandoned the sort of collectivist attitude that helped to motivate so much of how hip-hop started. the political Public Enemy style rap became underground and gangster rap, Dr. Dre and eventually Puffy and Biggie and all that took over. And when that happened, it simultaneously and perhaps paradoxically really reinforced a lot of right-wing values. The same people who alienated and created the wealth gap that created the situation that made rap music also exhibited a certain ethos, a belief that you need to be a cutthroat capitalist, money, 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 and you have to kill anybody who gets in your way, metaphorically or literally. It is right-wing rap. Gangster rap is right-wing rap. So we shouldn't be surprised when Ice Cube wants you to vote for Donald Trump. So I made an essay. I made a presentation, a class on the move towards right-wing rap in French, using Booba as the centerpiece. Matter of fact, you can watch that video. I'll include a link to it right up there. It's awesome. It's a great video. It's some of my best work. It is a presentation I've given literally at Harvard. Okay? It's that kind. You can get a Harvard lecture right here on YouTube for free. All right? So check out my right-wing rap video. But it's weird because, what I understood about Booba and about Lunatic was that it was this shift that even though France maintained a sort of socialist ethos in its rap music through the late 90s, okay, when we think about who was considered sort of gangster rap in the 90s, I have acts like Ministère Amer, who are very crass and cruel, but they're also very socially conscious. Or the second best French rap album of all time, Supramentem. Their name means F your mother, but their whole thing is about being good people. Or even Arsenic, who their famous ad lib is ch-ch, and they're very cool, but they're not actually about doing crime and being criminals and being mean. There was this thing about Booba especially, and to a lesser extent Lunatic, that was crime is good, guns are good, selling drugs are good. And especially the more popular that Booba got, the more he went into that. To the point where we have all these quotes, and you can see that in my other video, where he talks directly about being against social services. Against helping the poor. For hypercapitalism. He doesn't even live in France. He lives in Miami. He's the biggest sellout. He supports right-wing demagogues. He's super against gay rights, trans rights. He's basically DeSantis. He's like a DeSantis rapper. He's pro-Putin, anti-vaxxer, and he's been so popular for so long. He's so Drake. He just jumps from one trend to another. When it was cool to be kind of dark and hidden, under a hat, that's how he was. When it was cool to be like 50 Cent and have your shirt off, that's how he was. And when it was cool to have kind of sing-songy, that's what he did. He just keeps following along. So maybe that's why I don't like Lunatic. No. I didn't know that. How could I have known that? How could I have known in 2000 when I bought this album at the FNAC? How could I have known that that's where this was going? I mean, maybe I knew about their previous song because, I had the Hostile soundtracks, compilations, and Hostile, this is Hostile 2, which I actually prefer. But, I had Hostile 1, that has the song Le Crime Paye, which is their most famous song. Their greatest hit, probably of all time, Crime Pays. And this would put into, would make it clear what French rap was going to be going forward. I'll include a link to that as well, okay? A great song. Simple drum pattern, almost like the beginning of Shook Ones, but a wild Argentinian saxophone sample. And we just have Booba's famous style, which, his opening lines on this song, on Crime Pays, and this is from 96. This is from 4 years before the album I'm going to be discussing. This opening line is as famous as, swinging through the town like a neighborhood spider, man. It's as famous as, a child is born in a state of mind. It's one of those opening lines. Voici le métis café crème, MC, cappuccino, criminel, OMIC, si t'es pas de chez nous, c'est nique la taf, le bise, fait briller les G, les bœufs, les bœufs. Clack, mon style crack, le fret and zac. So he's just talking about how, he talks about his skin color because his mom was a white Belgian woman, his dad was Senegalese. I think he was actually a citizen of France, but anyways, of Senegalese origin. And he's just like this really thick slang, and he's just this voice, this just amazingly smooth and rough voice. Like, you just have to listen to Booba's voice. Like, no one else sounds like it. And no matter how much I want to hate on him for being a right-wing shill, for being a sellout, for being a little capitalist, for being all these things, the dude's voice just kills every time you hear it. A very simple, brutal chorus. Only crime pays, no remorse for my sins. I only love to hold money. I'm a beast for money. All about crime, all about money. He talks about take off your sweater, your jeans, your bracelet, and just how powerful he is. And just like, here's just an example of the kind of writing that he was able to do. Why he's considered to be one of the best. Tu sais, le crime paye, protège tes seufs, chez tes fesses. Chef tes fesses, et les méfaits naissent, regarde ce qu'on est. So, crime pays, watch your ass, your boss, and the misdeeds don't stop, look at what we do. But that doesn't really show you how well he's playing with the language, with the slang. This is the verlan, the backward slang in French, so the verb is actually faire, fait, which is to do, but he turns it into f, which is great because that's méfait, that's fait, that's what you do, but forward. So it's like forward and backwards all mixed up with this grimy thing. It don't matter. It does not matter. It really doesn't matter, like, what he says or does. Like, you just cannot fight what a great rapper he is. So maybe it was the artistic side of Mauvais Oeil I didn't like. It is very amateurish, but they are amateur. It's amateurish, but it's raw. 36 Chambers by Wu-Tang is amateurish, and that's part of why it's so great. Their story is very stock. They are from the suburbs of Paris. If you don't know the story, post-war France had a lot of immigrants from their former colonies. Don't forget, much like America, much like England, France's wealth largely came from its ability to exploit Africa and Africans. So sometimes that meant they would have African laborers come into France, or people seeking a better life coming into France. So that's who these two guys are. One of them is of Moroccan descent, and Booba is, Belgian and Senegalese. And it's funny because Booba's name, his real name is actually Eli, but he took the name Booba because he had a cousin whose name was Boubacar, and often people whose names are Boubacar, they'll shorten it to Booba. So this is even kind of like a weird fakeness there. They're from not the northern suburbs, which is sort of where most of the French rappers at this point were from. They're from the western suburbs, so that's kind of interesting. The Haute de Seine, like the high part of the Seine. So like maybe when I listened to this, I just kind of thought, I think what it might have been was that I must have kind of compared them to Les X, the X-Men, and just kind of thought that this was a better version of like I literally, like, that sound was literally a Renault, a Renault thing. You don't want to know how I got this. Sur le crime paye. But yeah, it's maybe I didn't like the difference between their voices, but now that I look at it, I just realize I was wrong. Like, I think about the music and how good they are and how solid they are when they rap, and the back and forth, and they had this easy manner with each other. It's sad because this is their one and only album. They broke up because Booba got so big as a solo artist, and he had to go be a big phony. He had to go become a big phony shill for the far right, who encourages people not to vote. But hey, it definitely deserves the title of Mobb Deep, but in French. So maybe it's not artistic, maybe it's just personal, I was trying to think, and like, I remember once going to Fnac and buying a French rap CD, and then I came back, and I lived the Champs-Élysées, the top of the Champs-Élysées was a very close metro stop to where I stayed when I was in junior year abroad. And I remember once just going up the stairs, and there are these groups of kids, just whatever, just young kids, probably of North African origin. Actually, there was a mix. There's like 4 or 5 kids, and I don't even know which one did it. There's a group of kids who looked like they could be, in La Clica, okay? They looked like they could just be these dudes, or they looked like they could be, they look like they could be these dudes, just kids from the suburbs who came in to Champs-Élysées just for fun, and one of them seriously punched me in the stomach so hard I fell over. And they didn't laugh, and they didn't stop, and they didn't talk about it. And I was alone, and no one stopped. And it was just sort of like, I'm so glad that I study these complicated relations between people on the periphery of society and the people in the center of society. And it makes sense that as a at least temporary member of that center of society, that they would take out their anger and aggression on me. And so I certainly understand that, and I should not be super angry at them. But also, owie, you hurt me tummy-wummy, you know? So maybe I just associate it with that, you know, this coarsening of French rap, because it got more coarse. It became rap. It stopped being hip-hop. It moved away from the cultural touchstones of graffiti and dancing and moved just more towards showing off fake guns. You know, IM, my favorite group, they actually have a whole song called Right-Wing Rap where they talk about it. But that can't be it either, because this album came out 8 months after that. This album came out when I lived in Marseille, not when I lived in Paris. So, like, I don't know. That's just some kind of confused memory in my head. You know, I definitely had one of their songs on a mixtape, Ode Sen. So I must have liked it a little bit. I don't know. The truth is, I was too old. When it came out, I was 23 years old, and it was the beginning of mid-20s music death. I had already decided that the French glory days were over. In 2000, I'd already decided that what I heard I did not like. I don't know, DC's La Peste, who came up, was great, by the way, but at the time I didn't like him. I didn't like what was coming out, and so I just sort of said, I think it's over. I must have already decided that French rap was past its glory days already in 2000. And obviously, I'm wrong. It's great. Before I give you an example of my favorite song, I do want to give a shout out to a YouTube video that's in French that will show you some of the samples that are in this album. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. So please look in the description to find that, because it's just like the samples on this album are amazing. It's part of what makes it such a great album. They have a lot of different producers and they're unified, but every song is not totally the same. So let me give you a stamp, my favorite song. The last time I'm going to point up above Hablo here with the song Si tu kiffes pas. I pulled it all together, did I not? Kiffer, if you do not kiff. All right? It's a Godfather sample, but it's chopped up a little bit so that you don't recognize it as a Godfather sample immediately. And it starts off with this just verse by Booba, and he's just so killer. I just want to read you everything. Il y a le joie, il y a l'arrière, de tant de billets, de la sat, mille mille, je rappe les miens, de chaque mot, ça pue la censure, nos rap, c'est pour tous ceux qui habitent au 15e sans ascenseur. You know, she's just talking about she's talking about life in the suburbs and not having, for those who live on the 15th floor, which in France is the 16th floor. People live in the 16th floor without an elevator, and he's mixing in Arabic, and he's mixing in this very thick accent. And then he says, J'aime voir du sang sur la FN. I like to see blood on the National Front. And this is what's so frustrating. Within like 7 years, he will have lyrics that are, you can vote for the left, you can vote for the right, I don't care, I'm chilling out on my hammock. He like literally says, you can support the fascist, I don't care. You can support the anti-immigrant people, I don't care. It's like so maddening that he went that way. But I think one could make the argument that it was always going to go that way, that someone was going to do it, that money was always going to come in and screw it up. I make the argument that he partly announced the move towards Sarkozy and towards the right in French culture. That's an argument that I make. I'm going to go through the rest of the album much quicker here. It starts off with the intro. Ali starts off. Ali's interesting. I haven't talked a lot about him because he has like a voice that reminds me super strongly of... Anyways, he reminds me a lot... here we go. Of Freeman, who's a French-Algerian rapper from Marseille, who has a really great French rap album as well. Not that one. That album sucks. But his first album is really good. Just because like there's a certain guttural quality to people of North African origin with the way... Because, you know, Arabic has a sort of right? That's a sound in Arabic that's not in other languages. And when you can rap with that in French, it just creates its whole other sound. I was looking, trying to find Mauvais Oeil, and I got all excited because I saw this. I was like, sweet, Oeil, but it was actually Troisième Oeil, another Marseille group. That album's really good, but again, more kind of rappers with that kind of sound. So it's really nice, and really Ali is the political side and Booba is the other side. And this was mentioned in that video that I linked to before. Lunatic, in its proper meaning, means, especially in French, someone who has two different modes, like where you see them one time and they'll be one way, and you see them another time and they'll be another. Like you can't tell how they're going to behave. And they are lunatic themselves, where you have Ali, just great political messaging, not really about crime and hatred, but about like trying to build people up. And then you always have Booba, just all about like hatred and all that. On est venu cracher notre haine. His first line on the whole song is, we came here to spit out our hatred. Now the funny thing is, this is very political, and it's not, it's talking about hatred, and it's talking about coming from Haute-Seine. I sort of wonder what would have happened if in 1996 they took the success of Crime Pays, and built it out. There's an entire alternate timeline where they followed the success of that posturing, that kind of posturing, and moved forward and became like, because that was like right around the same time that I Am and NTM, or that was right around the time that this glory age was coming. So it's weird that they had to wait until 2000 to release their album after their big single. Do you know why? Because Booba went to jail for robbing a taxi. So I guess crime doesn't pay because we had to wait. But maybe it's good. Maybe it's good. I don't know. Next song is called Pas le temps pour le regret. No time. And I apologize for my pronunciation. Switching between English and French is really tough. So I do not pronounce French as well when I'm doing these videos as I normally speak French. But, c'est comme ça. Nice kind of beat here with Fayrouz, who's this legend of Lebanese music, and from what I've been told, all Arabic houses, all Arab homes have a Fayrouz CDs, like the same way that in the 70s, all Italian homes would have Italian American homes would have a Frank Sinatra thing. Like that's who Fayrouz is. It's this great sample that reinforces their true origins. Ali's got that great North African style. Booba comes in, beautiful voice. Groupe Sanguin, that was what used to be on a mixtape that I made. Haute-Seine, talk about where they're from, just super catchy and cool. Illegal, like guns and cocaine. Eventually, this album is a lot about selling hash and weed, but by the time the decade's over, Booba is just going to be rapping about like moving kilos and having Kalashnikovs and just becoming just a total cartoon idiot who just has nothing to do with anything. The Effort of Peace, the next song, super awesome beat, descending notes, little guitar thing, this great aggressive voice from Booba. Then there's like a third rapper, Sir Dooms, and I think this would have made the whole project better for me 24 years ago, because I think when they have a third voice in there, it helps to break up. There's something about the sameness of them going off each other over and over again, but I don't know. La Lettre, super ratty drum sounds. This is maybe the most kind of Mobb Deep sounds. Just the relentless nature of Booba's rhymes. He just keeps going and keeps coming. Like he has that feel where you just know he can just keep going. Si tu kiffes pas, My Stamp, Tête Brûlée. This song is like basically like non-rhythmic. It's crazy, this beat. And this is what they call passe-passe in French, where one person does a line, then the other. It's a two-man weave, and they just keep going. It's just this, God, what was wrong with me? Huh? What, some dude punched me in the stomach? And so I don't like a great album? 92i, 92i, in reference to, so the way that French suburbs work is they have different postal codes, and that's the way you identify them. So like as an example, you might have like this. So this is for the 13 postal code. This was a compilation for that. Or you might have, I don't know, I'm just all lost. Doesn't matter. So you might have the 93, 94, 75. Everyone knows in France what these suburbs are, what their postal code is, and part of what they're trying to do is make 92 famous. Very effectively atmosphere style, kind of a posse cut with Malakal Mort, which is a different group from this same area, from this same hood. And what I like is they just kind of keep on saying c'est pour le ro, which is an Arabic word which basically means like brother. But again, it's very important. Immigrant rap is very important in the way that it uses language because it creates a specific group of people who can understand it. You can't only speak Arabic and understand French rap. You can't only speak French and understand French rap. You have to understand both the Arabic slang and the French, and which creates a sort of place for people to be when they often feel like, as they say in France, an ass between two chairs. That's the way French often describe the immigrant experience, that you're never comfortable anywhere you are. So this kind of play with language is a space that they're able to create linguistically for people who speak these languages all at the same time. HLM3 is the next song. That's the word for projects, Habitation de Loyer Modéré. I think that's what HLM stands for. Very interesting drum sequence, cool xylophone melody, le son qui met la pression, the sound that puts the pressure. It's just Booba's flow is just insane. And this great like waltz, this ba-bang, ba-bang. Like seriously, I cannot believe I have not always loved this album. Like I want to finish this video just so I can listen to it again. Avertisseur, cool beat with strings, kind of a heavy guitar sound, a bit tired, very political here. Ali's taking on the Pope for supporting slavery. Respect. Super cool rapping style of Booba. Silence is not forgetting, kind of a bloopy synth pattern. Again, they're sampling an avant-garde saxophonist. This time, it's not an Argentinian. It's an Englishman named John Sermon. The drums stagger behind Mauvais Oeil, the title track. The evil eye, nice mournful tone, harp sounds. Booba's sad, kind of talking about his life, this sort of vulnerability which will go away from his music. Civilisé is the final track on the original version of the album. Kind of a mysterious beat, and it's a very complicated concept, civilized. A lot of the taking over of Africa was done in the name of civilizing. It was called la mission civilisatrice, civilizing mission, and obviously they were civilized. They just had a different society, and we just took them over and said, okay, well, now you're civilized. So when you when you are from a society that was manipulated and enslaved because it was perceived of as being uncivil, and you now live in civil society, is not acting uncivil a logical repercussion of that? As a final word on all this, Booba released an album earlier this year, and it's good. The guy can still rap. 24 years later, the guy can still rap. He has the single Dolce Camera with SDM, another Haute-Seine rapper. That's great. Dude even went back to jail. Okay, hey, Kendrick and Drake, they can have a beef. They can have a beef. Caris, another French rapper, and Booba got into a fist fight in an airport. It's on film. You can see Booba walk around with his muscles out, like punching and all that. And they went and spent some time there. Dude's still hardcore. In the end, I think the person he reminds me most of is Johnny Hallyday. Now, he has way more talent than Johnny Hallyday ever had because he writes his own lyrics and all that. But in a similar way, Johnny Hallyday sort of represented the kind of mainstreaming and selling out of rock in France. And he's sort of this idea of how France sees itself, a kind of nostalgic look back, a sort of the person who managed to really capture, like, a trend-writing, jumping, like, because he came from the golden era of French rock and roll, he could always sort of incarnate it while completely bastardizing it and changing his sound and just exploiting it and becoming a cartoon version of himself. Ah, que oui. And that's pretty much what Booba's done as well. But again, I don't really mean to insult Booba like that, because Johnny Hallyday was like an impressive performer and an interpreter, but, anyways. Johnny Holliday's great. My dad bought that, by the way. My dad bought this. He bought that record in October 1961. If you study French history, and I tell you that my father was in Paris in October 1961, I can tell you I have some more stories to tell about that. And then, in the spring of '99, I was out buying my own records. That's fun, right? Rock and roll rap. All right, well, let's go, France. Allez les Bleus. I want to get another one in here. I want to cover, I think, PNL next, because there's another group that I've ignored, and I want to figure out who they are. And, oh, my God, I want to play England in the final. It'll be a 0-0 tie. It'll go to extra. That will go to penalty kicks, and it'll be a 0-0 tie in penalty kicks. It'll be the only final that ends 0-0. A tie. We're going to split the Euro thing in half. All right. Until next time. There's the camera.